This one is for the boys. This is for the boys that grew up chunkers, like me. Boys, maybe you're still a chunker. Or maybe like me, you figured out how to unfat yourself, as a man should. But then you fell into like the skinny fat trap. Or maybe in the midst of all of that, you lose it and then you gain it and then you lose it, but you never look very good. And most of all, you never feel very good. And this is for the boys that remember watching the movie, that one guy when you were a kid and being like, man, that's sick. I would like to look like that. This is for you. This episode, we are going to talk about how, itchy nose, about how to unfatify yourself. It's a new term. I created it. I'm going to keep using it. In any case, to start the story, I'll start with my own story, and then we'll get into a little bit of the instructions, some of the science, and I'll end with a little bit of a protocol of sorts. Now, I'll add the caveat here for everyone listening. I'm not obscenely shredded. I've been, I don't know, around 10%. It's probably the leanest that I ever was. I haven't been that lean in a while. I stay relatively lean. I'm not crazy lean at the moment, but it's effortless, or nearly effortless. And I feel, this is the kicker, really, really good. So, what I'm going to talk about is how to create not just a diet, but a way of life that lets you stay at a healthy body composition, weight doesn't matter nearly as much as composition, and enjoy life and feel amazing. And this isn't in the stupid like Sam Sulek, like, you just count calories, bro, and you eat donuts and cheeseburgers and that's it, and then you die at the age of 38. Listen, he's competing as a bodybuilder. He's doing a great job. It's really cool. And there's something to it. This kind of new golden era of like Gen Z bodybuilding. I think it's sick. There's a lot of dudes doing some really cool stuff bodybuilding. I also think it's stupid. Not the bodybuilding part. I appreciate the quest for excellence. What's stupid is the way that people are going about it nutritionally. We'll get to that. For now, let's talk about Will Smith. Not the funny time when he, I don't know, like slapped, what's his name? Chris Tucker? I think that was probably staged, but I guess it doesn't matter. He really got cucked out by Jada, and it's really a shame. Because peak Will Smith was sick. Men in Black? Sick. But in Men in Black and like Fresh Prince, he was like all lanky. I remember watching iRobot, which was in like 2005, I think. Homie wakes up and he's just like jacked to the gills. He gets up, he like spray paints his arm or something because it's like a robot arm, and then he does some like behind the head pull-ups, and his back's just huge and his shoulders are huge. I still remember it because I remember looking at it and be like, that was sick, bro. I would like to look like that. And I think most dudes have this experience, and fat kids don't admit it, but they have this too. They have it too. It's like fat kids like girls too. Like fat kids want to be jacked too. A lot of them, like me, just get stuck in the cope of the belief that you won't ever be different is so deeply ingrained in who you are and how you view yourself in the world that instead of considering it to be a legitimate potential, you just make like cynical jokes about it, which is what I did. But I remember still now that scene. And then later, I Am Legend, he was jacked again, and I was like, man, that's sick. That's sick. And so when I originally started losing fat, it was just like, I want to unfat myself. But as I went, I was like, no, I want to look good. And as I went even further, I thought, I want to feel good. So the way that this went, I've mentioned this before, but growing up, I was really just not healthy at all. I played a lot outside sports, a lot of basketball with my cousins. They live like 5 minutes away. We were outside, especially during the summer, like every day. Every day, we'd be playing soccer or basketball or tag or at the park or like shooting airsoft guns or riding our bikes. We were outside pretty much all day, every day. It was awesome. It was awesome. But as I got older, they got better at their sports and they started competing. I never got better, really. And I didn't compete. I never really. I want to say I never had the temperament for it, but really I think I never had the DHT for it. But that's part of another DHT talk later. But effectively, what happened is everyone else was playing sports and competing, and I didn't have anything else to do. So I dove more into music, but then I dove more also into food and becoming a chunker. And by the time I entered my sophomore year, I was real chubbo. I was a chubbo. I was. And granted, it was all I knew. My grandma she did cook for us, and that was great. But we ate a lot, and we ate good, and we ate out a lot, and I was a chunker. My sophomore year, I did wrestling for a season, and I got pretty cut up. It was pretty sick. I did it eating protein bars, like roast protein bars from the gas station, and tuna wrapped in lettuce. I did this for like 4 months. I had never done anything like this before, but it was like a game. I saw the scale and I was like, this will drop. And it did. It dropped. I went into, I've talked about this before, but I went into that hell week. I don't remember why, but I went in and I think I got 20 minutes in and I was like, oh no. Like I've made a dire mistake. And I wanted to leave almost immediately once we started doing stuff. And then I think someone cracked a joke, and a few guys cracked a joke about the chubby kids because I wasn't the only one. It's like all the chubby kids like aspire, like, I'm going to go wrestle. I'm going to stay in. And they kind of made fun of us. And I was like, you can't make fun of me. And so I wanted to leave, but I was like, I'm not leaving. I'm not just some dumb fat kid. And so I stayed. And after 3, 4, 5 months of it, I think I'd lost 40 pounds. And that was the first time I'd had an experience in losing any kind of weight. Unfortunately, I then got a job at KFC. I've made this joke before, but I do recognize the fact that I am half black. I'm also half Danish and English. But I'm half black. The irony of me working at KFC is not missed on me. But I got pretty fat. Working at KFC. And then that was the summer of my sophomore year into junior year. Junior year, I gained more weight. And senior year, I gained even more weight. And by the time I left to a church mission in the Philippines, I was over 200 pounds. And I was about 5'6" at the time. And I didn't have a drop of muscle. And I hadn't been really moving or exercising basically at all for quite a while at that point. So I was just a big glob of melted goopy candle wax. I had this experience one moment when I was in the Philippines where God showed me how and who I was, and I snapped. I hated it. I refused to accept it. I got the insanity videos. I did them every morning for 9 months. I even upgraded. I got up earlier so I could do the hour-long ones halfway through. So I was like, I need something more. And I got pretty lean, and it was sick. And it was the first time that I had not just gotten lean, but I built some strength too. I had I had like a little bit of a peck. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I had like, like a little bicep. It was pretty sick. And hey, you got to start somewhere. And I still have plenty distance to go. But that's how it started. I came back from the Philippines after 2 years, and all that I thought was like, I cannot get fat again. I just can't do it. And so I came back and I did not get fat. And I did it not by having like an eating disorder, but I didn't eat enough. And it was just straight up because I was just afraid of getting fat. And so what I became was skinny fat. So I started college like right when I got home. I think in large part because I wanted to stay busy, stay moving. Once you have momentum, you have trajectory. You got to keep the trajectory. I think it's about, especially as a man, momentum and trajectory. If I ever lose my momentum and trajectory, I feel like I've lost everything, and I do everything in my power to regain it. Because if I can regain that momentum, then on my bad days, my momentum from the 10 days before will carry me. And so I wanted to keep that. I came back and I said, I'm not going to get fat again. I didn't get fat again. I did not chunkify again. But what I did do was not eat enough. I didn't eat enough protein. And I fell for the classic like nutrition psyops, right? And because I fell for those, I was eating stuff that are, pretty hefty and like industrial seed oils. I was eating the like basic like granola stuff, like low quality oatmeal. I was eating, honestly, I probably was not eating more than 50 grams of protein a day. Like I'd be having like Chick-fil-A all the time, Panda Express, Subway, because Subway is very good for you. It's not. Anyway, that Jared guy, though, he unfatted himself on Subway. That was pretty cool. Anyway, I think there was some scandal with him after that. I don't know what happened, but I think it was something. Anyway, moving forward, I lost the weight, but then I got skinny fat. And I was that way for, let's see, that was 2016 until 2020. And by the time I got to 2020, it had pretty much wrecked my metabolism. So here we're going to take a slight detour. We're going to talk about the thyroid, because I don't think enough of us understand the power of the thyroid. Essentially, your thyroid is your body's metabolic your metabolic organ. And its role, among other things, is to regulate your temperature and to regulate your metabolism, the energy that you create and expend. So you could think of thyroid as like the gas pedal to the engine. Well, we'll think of it as the throttle cable, because actually leptin is the gas cable. We're going to get to leptin later. But in essence, thyroid is at the heart of what makes your metabolism work. Now, the kicker with the thyroid is that it's extremely sensitive to stress. So your thyroid sits in your neck. It's like a little butterfly thing. So you've probably seen, maybe you haven't, I don't know. Look up goiter, Goiter. So when I was in the Philippines, this is actually really common. So the reason that we have, what's the word, iodized salt, is it was because it was an easy way for them to supply iodine to the general population, because iodine is needed to create T3, and that's needed. T3 and T4 are the thyroid hormones, and those hormones dock to sites around your body and allow for metabolic activity like temperature regulation, burning energy, fat oxidation, sugar glucose oxidation, those kinds of things. And so it's really important that it works well. But the thyroid is very, very sensitive to stress. And this actually is not just physical stress, but also emotional, spiritual, mental stress. But it's very sensitive to stress of just about any kind. And what's really stressful is going for years not getting enough nutrients screaming, I'm not good at enough at yourself, forcing yourself to be in a hurry, being in a circadian broken environment, which means I was doing a music degree, so I was indoors pretty much all days. I was staring at screens, working on computers all the time, and just straight up not eating enough, not getting enough protein, not getting enough calories, not having enough. So my body for years was just in this. I went from years of just way too much excess to years of just not nearly enough. And this is, a conversation that we'll dive into another day, but this feeling of like not good enough. And I was just driven by this demon. I was like, I will not get fat again. I will not get fat again. I will not get fat again. And I didn't. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for those years, but it took a toll. And eventually what happens, if you've been a chubby kid and then you've experienced the skinny fat thing after, you'll know that what I'm saying is true. And you see this in actually a lot of people around the world. They lose fat and then they get skinny fat. This is why a lot of like runners and bikers are skinny fat. It's because they're supplying constant chronic stress over a long period of time and not supplying their body and especially their thyroid with the nutrients that it needs in order to fix itself, in order to regenerate, which would allow your metabolism to work better. And so because of that, my metabolism crashed. And when your thyroid stops working, which is what happens if your metabolism crashes, then your mental health stops working. Then your gut stops working because you don't create stomach acid well. Then you stop utilizing energy well, which means you put on fat, you have a hard time putting on muscle, even if you're not eating that much, because your body's gone into full on, full out survival mode. And that's where I was come 2020. And I've talked about this and I'll talk about it again. But in 2020 is when my health just absolutely fell apart. I was skinny fat. My knees were so wrecked that I could not function. I'm sitting cross-legged right now. I've been in this position for a couple hours now. 10 minutes, I was wrecked. My shoulder was wrecked. My gut was so bad that I couldn't eat just about anything without like crazy gas or bloating or diarrhea or my skin getting crazy. Everything just went crazy. And a lot of that, maybe even most of that, is attributed to the fact that I was just not eating enough for years. Those are my skinny fat years. And around this time is when I discovered Ray Peat. And Ray Peat is a genius. He passed actually just a couple years ago, but he revolutionized the world. He revolutionized the world of nutrition and of metabolism in a way that very, very, very few others have. And he was really influenced by the work of other researchers like Albert Szent-Györgyi. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but his last name is Szentgyorgy. So if the world of metabolism is something you're interested in, dive down this rabbit hole. Ray Peat and energy by way of Albert Szent-Györgyi. Fantastic, interesting rabbit hole. But I started to dive down it. And one principle above all others is what I took away, which is that sometimes the answer is to eat more instead of less. And that goes against everything that I thought was true about nutrition. And that's because what's even more important than food is energy. And we're going to get to how it all ties together. So don't get me wrong here in saying that food doesn't matter. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that amount doesn't matter either. But a lot of times the answer is actually to eat more. And the more you eat, the more reason you give your body to have better metabolic activity, right? So I'd gone all these years just not eating enough. And finally, I read this book. It's called How to Heal Your Metabolism by Kate Deering. And this was after I had started diving fairly deep into the work of Ray Peat, who's very, very pro metabolism. his undivided focus in what he created was on what can I do to make the thyroid more healthy and to spike metabolism through the roof. Because he believed, and I believe, that high metabolic creatures that continually supply the nutrients required for a higher metabolism don't just live longer, but they live better. They have better sex drive. They have healthier hormones. They have healthier brains. They have less disease. They enjoy life more. They build more muscle. They have healthier joints. And this is what I've experienced. And so I dove there into the world of Ray Peat. And from there, I thought, how can I support this? At the same time, I was still working out my gut issues, so they kind of came together. But the thing is, when you eat more and quality food, that means the amount of nutrients that you're receiving, like, for instance, the vitamin C in this here orange. The amount of nutrients that you're receiving skyrockets. So you're giving more energy to your body, and the signal that you're sending is, hey, I am in an abundant environment. You can increase metabolic activity. And that's fantastic because it'll take you out of survival mode and put you into thriving, becoming, growing mode. And until you're in that growing, becoming, thriving mode, you're never going to reach your goals in building muscle, in strength, in the energy that you have, even in your sleep and your mood. If mental health is a problem, the thyroid should absolutely be on your radar, because low-grade hypothyroidism, which, by the way, functional ranges are not the same as the average ranges like a doctor will share with you. Most doctors, anyway. And I'm not going to give specific numbers and such here. We can dive into that at a later time. I want to give a general overview right now. But that's the principle, is essentially the signal that you're wanting to send is an environment of abundance. And so I did. I started to send that. I had a lot more like raw milk, goat's milk, cow milk. I started to have more sugars, started to have more carbs, eat a lot more. I had a lot more protein. I was also just getting a lot more nutrients in, and I started feeling a lot better. And for the first time, really ever, although I did start to put on some muscle in 2020 because I ate more protein on the diet that I was on, which I didn't mention. In 2020, when I got kind of cut up, I did Alexander Cortez, AJAC, guy I followed for a long time. Really, really great account. He had a program that was basically a protein-sparing fast. So essentially, you eat meat, and that's it. It's like I don't know, 30 grams of carbs a day, maybe. It really restricted, and then you have like a cheat day for like 8 hours. I did that for a while, and I got cut up. So I did gain some muscle there just because I was eating more protein than I had been before. But that aside, when I did this, I started incorporating some of these pro-metabolic principles and some thyroid too, some desiccated thyroid, which is like air-dried and then ground up powder. I started incorporating that, and all of a sudden, I could like put on more muscle, and I got like bigger. And it was around this time I got a personal training job, which makes me chuckle considering what I know now, compared to then. But it's fine. I was doing my best, and I helped some people. We had a good time. I started putting on some muscle, but then it went a little too far. And then I started to get chubbo again. I actually didn't even realize how chubbo I had gotten. And now I look back at some pictures, and I was like, oof, I let myself get a little chunko there. A little chunko there, Terrell. That was not great. Not great. But I put on muscle in a way that I hadn't before, and I felt amazing. And because I was able to relieve some stress on my body, it was also a time where I was able to heal my metabolism and to heal my gut in a really, really effective way. So I'm grateful for that time. But if I had to go back, I would do it Well, in the way that I'm going to share later. I would do it without uh, getting chunky. So that was another puzzle piece that I had gotten. The first puzzle piece was obviously like restraining myself, restricting my diet. The next puzzle piece was adding some protein and fixing my gut, which we'll have another episode on. And then switching to whole, clean foods, getting rid of seed oils, um, industrial seed oils, that is, like low quality grains, the things that, uh, bloat you and negatively affect you, because things that inflame you are stressful. Things that are stressful will affect your thyroid. But the problem with this is that Ray Peat's approach really avoids almost all stress. And as a man, especially, that's a problem. See, for women, actually, avoiding stress is a really good idea because their hormones are a lot more sensitive to it than ours are. But as a man, what you actually need in order to have healthy hormones and to feel good is some stress. And so through this time, I'd focused so much on like relieving stress, on like eating more, and eventually it was like not enough stress. And so I got to this point where I got kind of chunky. And then I discovered light. And along this whole way, my whole goal, even though a lot of the time I didn't realize this was my goal, it's like I want to learn how to build muscle, how to feel good, how to have energy all the time, and to not be fat and still enjoy my life. Because listen, man, once a fat kid, always a fat kid. When I was a young kid, I was literally a flaming hot Cheetos addict. And then I went through some Takis addiction years. I won't even lie. It was like in my college years. And I'll be completely honest with you, I still think Takis taste amazing. And like 1 to 3 times a year I have a bag of Takis, and I do it shamelessly because I love them. But that's an aside. Once a fat kid, always a fat kid. And so I wanted to learn. There was something in me that said there's got to be a way that I can feel really good, eat food that I really like, not be stressed out, counting calories, obsessing all of the time, and still look good, feel good, move well, build muscle. And so this whole time I'd been putting together these puzzle pieces, just little by little. What is this? What is this? How does this do? How does this one work? And then in 2021 or 2022, I don't know, one of the years, I discovered the work of Jack Kruse. And that revolutionized everything for me. That's going to be a series of podcasts, not just on him, but in the world of circadian health. But I'm going to give just a little shorty here because I don't want to make this super long. But basically, I realized that light and the circadian rhythm is an even deeper determinant of how my metabolism and my hormones and my sleep and my energy function. And that if I could get my light right, everything else would start to follow, especially if I had my food and my movement right. And all of a sudden, the puzzle pieces started coming together. I learned these little tidbits, like isolated blue light increases blood sugar, and it releases ACTH, which causes you to create and release cortisol. And cortisol causes more insulin resistance, and red light increases mitochondrial efficiency. And then I was like, wait, what does mitochondrial efficiency mean? So I had to learn about what the mitochondria do. And I was like, oh, my mitochondria really is the powerhouse of the cell. And it's actually the power generator of the whole body. And a healthy metabolism is a healthy mitochondria and a healthy thyroid. And so if I could get those things, then that's great. And how do I get the healthy thyroid? Well, that's in part an after effect of this, and another part what I talked about before, which is food and stress, and we'll get to that. But the mitochondria, this is light, right? I realized that the sun regulates everything. It regulates when my blood sugar is going to be highest, when my insulin sensitivity is going to be highest. It regulates when my testosterone is going to be highest, when my melatonin is going to be released. Then I learned about melatonin, that it's not just a sleepy hormone, it's an antioxidant. And I was like, oh, and then I learned you can block blue at night. That'll let you sleep better. The better you sleep, the better your metabolism, your mitochondria are going to work. The better your mitochondria and your thyroid work, the easier it is to lose fat, to gain muscle with less stress. And this changed everything for me. And this is when I became the red glasses, red light. You see the red? It's not an accident. The red glasses at night, red light enthusiast, sun enthusiast, because I realized that everything in the body, down to the smallest minutia, operates on a clock. It's all a cycle that's all interdependent, including the thyroid and your metabolism. And that in order for that to work, the circadian rhythm needs to be on lock. So that was another puzzle piece. And then another puzzle piece that came as a part of that was leptin. And understanding that leptin, you might have heard about leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin is like the hunger hormone, and leptin is like the satiety hormone, but it's so much more than this. It's actually the master energy hormone. And it's actually produced in your fat cells, also called your adipocytes. We're getting kind of deep here. So leptin's job is to receive information about energy that you've received from outside and from food. It's in fat cells, which is where you store energy, and then to send that information to your hypothalamus. And based on that information that it sends, it regulates your energy, right? If you don't have enough energy, right? So low leptin in a leptin sensitive person means you're hungry. So you'd eat. For example, right now, I haven't eaten since I had like a pound of chicken and pineapple at, it's 7:52 right now. I had it at 12:30? No, 2. It's been like 6 hours. I'm getting hungry because I'm leptin sensitive. My leptin fell. My leptin levels that are being sent to my hypothalamus fell, and my hunger went up, right? But at the same time that the leptin falls, it's because your hypothalamus is the center of all of the hormones and the metabolic processes in your whole body. It's the command center for everything. That means that leptin is the command hormone for everything, which means this is also connected to fertility, to hormones, to sex drive, to mental health, and everything in between. But right now we're going to talk about it for fat loss, because a problem is that if leptin doesn't work, if it can't do its job because you've become desensitized to it, then thyroid can't do its job. This is what I mentioned earlier, that thyroid is the throttle cable. If thyroid is the throttle cable, now you need to know, if you haven't seen a car, I need you to picture this for me. What happens, you have the pedal that you push on, like the accelerator, that is on a cable. When you push on it, it pulls that cable. The cable connects to the engine, which then opens to a certain amount, the amount of gas and air that gets let into the piston, which then speeds up the speed at which like the cylinder is firing, right? So if you look by extension, the engine speed, that's like the speed that your metabolism is firing at. The throttle cable controls everything in between, but that leptin, that's the gas pedal. And this was the missing piece for me. It was incredible. Dude, I'm telling you, like overnight, I just like weight just started dropping off of me. And then I started learning about leptin, and I realized that the biggest problem a person can have is having a stressed out thyroid, inflamed body and gut, and being leptin insensitive, being desensitized to leptin. So what I wanted to learn was how I could resensitize myself to leptin while keeping all these other things in check. So that all sounds really complicated, I know, but it's not. And it's actually become something that's fun for me. So I'm going to talk about a couple things that sensitize you to leptin, and then I'm going to talk about what I'm doing now and how I'm building my protocol and what my goals are, and what I would suggest is that you take what you can experiment with. So, leptin. Now, I just said that when leptin is high, you're full. And when leptin is high, it's actually a good thing if you're sensitive to it, right? Because it's that abundance signal again. So people that are sensitive to leptin and have leptin that gets high regularly, that means you can be more fertile, right? It's like the idea is like if you're poor, Andrew Tate, you're poor. You have small arms. He's a comedian. Anyway, if you're poor, you're not worrying about if you're drinking like raw milk, or like, am I getting raw goat milk, or like, am I getting like enough like vitamin B1 in my diet? Like, no. If you're poor, you're like, can I stave off my hunger for another 3 hours for today? Right? That's poverty. And so when you're sending the poverty signals to your body, it's thinking about survival. Now, when you start to send these abundance signals to your body, which you do through the leptin and through thyroid, through your lifestyle and your diet, then all of a sudden you start to be able to create. So your brain starts to fire better. Your sleep gets better. Your hormones get better because now your body's like, I feel good. Now let's find a woman and make some babies. And you start building muscle because your body has a little bit extra to build with. You see what I'm saying here? You can repair yourself. And so I realized this was the case with leptin, but in order to do that, you need to become sensitive to it. And this is what I was not. I was not leptin sensitive. And really, anyone that's fat is certainly not leptin sensitive, but you can rebuild your leptin sensitivity. And one of the ways to do that is by decreasing it. It's similar to how you would rebuild your insulin sensitivity. Insulin is the hormone that does a lot of things, but it also allows you to absorb sugar into your cells better. So, with insulin and with leptin, the way that you become more sensitive to it is the similar way that you become more sensitive to dopamine is you get less of it, or you get it to drop. So the reason people become desensitized is because they just have so much going all the time, constantly snacking, constantly eating chips, constantly eating granola bars, constantly drinking soda, constantly it's constantly going, right? And because it's constantly high, like if something's constantly there, you stop so consciously, right? Like if you always have something, you stop valuing it. And so something that allows something to become more valuable and therefore sensitizes you to it is scarcity. And so you need both dips in leptin and insulin and high, right? Because the high sends signals you need, but the dip sensitizes you for the high. Does that make sense? And so what you need is space in between. So there are some things that damage leptin. One is circadian misalignment and general inflammation, because leptin is a hormone. If you're just generally inflamed and unwell, then that's going to cause problems. But one that's huge is just overconsumption. And so you can counter that by fasting. And that's why I've become a fasting enthusiast. Now, in my church, we actually fast once a month. And I always complained about it growing up, which is so funny because not only is it good for the soul, it's good for the body and for the mind. And it's good to sensitize leptin. And so I realized that fasting was fantastic because what happens is you don't have anything coming in, so your leptin goes low. And so when you come out of that fast, every time you're a little more sensitive to the leptin that your brain is a little more sensitive to the signals of leptin, I should say. And actually, fasting has similar benefits to insulin. Leptin and insulin kind of work in tandem in the same areas. And another one, funny enough, is cold. So this is another big reason that I love cold plunge, is one of the physical reasons. When you cold plunge, you actually get a spike in leptin, because one of the things that leptin can do is to signal your body. It can signal your uncoupling proteins, is what they're called. So we're going to take a tangent here so I can explain this. I know we're getting in the weeds, but I will wrap it all up so that it makes sense. So if you consider your mitochondria to be like a power plant factory, right? You have like this belt where you're creating energy, and the energy's going there, right? And it's just always going there, going there, going there. So the way that works is the electron transport chain, right? Effectively, energy goes in, goes through the chain, and then it goes out as ATP and cellular water, which is not less important than ATP, but that's in the weeds, so I won't dive into it. Anyway, you have this belt, energy goes in, goes through the electron transport chain, obviously wildly oversimplified, comes out as water and ATP. And then you can use ATP to fuel other processes through the body. The water also has a role. What leptin can do is signal these uncoupling proteins. So it's kind of like if you have this track here, it's kind of like those uncoupling proteins will allow you to go like this. And so it allow you to divert some of the energy over here. And the reason that that's important is because if you have too much energy coming through here, it can actually overwhelm what your mitochondria is able to process, and it'll start leaking out and causing oxidative stress. Or it's just too much and it gets stored as fat. So what leptin can do is signal these uncoupling proteins, which literally uncouple the process, right? And they allow the energy to be released as heat, which is why cold plunges are really great for this, because they signal something called PGC1A, which is a hormone that helps with mitochondrial efficiency. And when they signal that, it has an interplay with leptin and the uncoupling proteins, because you need to get warm. This isn't the shivering, this is the warmth that happens lower. So if you're ever outside during like the winter, like the first 5 to 10 minutes, you're like cold, and then you walk a little longer and you're like, I'm not really cold anymore. That's because your uncoupling proteins woke up and you started letting some energy out through the uncoupling proteins in your mitochondria as heat. So fasting and cold are really great to do this. HIIT cardio is also another really great way to improve the mitochondrial health through that same signaling molecule, PGC1A, which is really just a fascinating rabbit hole, but we don't have to dive super deep into it now. So that's all of the puzzle pieces that I got to. And when I got to those, all of a sudden, it was easy for me to stay relatively lean. I've never been disgustingly shredded. And if I'm honest, I don't know that I ever will be wildly shredded. I don't have much of a desire, but 10 to 14% I'd be happy with. And so I try to stay around there. I'm a little more right now. But I'm cutting down, and I bet within a month or two I'll probably be at 12 to 13%, using the very, very easy method that I'm going to share with you right now. So we're going to look at some of the puzzle pieces of what, in my opinion, make a wildly easy way to lose fat without having to be stressed and obsessed about calories all the time. So to start this, some prerequisites. You need to have a general knowledge of like macros and energy input and output, right? The idea that calories in equals calories out, it's flawed, right? You will lose weight, yes, if you have a calorie deficit. That's true, assuming that you have enough protein, whatever. But you can influence how much energy you utilize in your body by improving your metabolic health. You can absolutely do this. So that's not just like a straight shot. What comes in goes out, and if this is that's no. And I know that I'm going to take a lot of heat for that, but I don't care because everyone that thinks that is wrong. And you're just too stubborn to let go of the idea that calories might not be God. Moving on. That being said, you do need to have an understanding of general energy input and output, which means for some amount of time counting calories. Because, for example, when I very first started counting, I thought I was like eating protein. I was eating like 50 grams a day. And dog, like you should be bare minimum eating 100 grams. There's just no reason. As a man, if you're training, there's no reason for you to be under 150. And you got to understand, you need protein. You need it to rebuild your joints. You need it to rebuild your muscles. You need it for hormones all around your body. There's this class of hormones called amines that are literally made out of amino acids. And amino acids are what proteins are made out of. How do you get amino acids? By eating protein or by eating your own muscles, right? So you need it. So that's step one, right? If you haven't before, count calories for some amount of time. I know that sounds counterintuitive because this is the anti-calorie counting routine, but you need that understanding to know generally how much you're eating. And if you ever need to go a few weeks like counting again, that's fine. Just knowing, just so that you have an idea of how much you're consuming. So that's one. Number two, foundational. You need to be eating quality whole foods, right? So this means, in a nutshell, you're having chicken, beef, elk, fish, shellfish, right? Eggs, quality dairy, yogurt, kefir. I have a guide that maybe I'll put in the comments and I could share. And then quality fats, right? You're getting fats from animal food, coconut oil, olive oil, avoiding the garbage like industrial seed oils and low quality grains, low quality dairy, avoiding all of the garbage and having high quality foods. Eating most of your carbs through like potatoes, rice, other starches, squashes, fruits, and eating veggies that you cook, and some like high quality sprouted grains, things like that. So that's the second part of the foundation, is that you need to have high quality foods. You need to have a high quality diet. And if you don't, you need to learn how to cook. You're a grown man and you don't know how to cook. That's a problem. That's a problem. There's just not a solution to your problem until you learn how to cook. Because what are you going to keep eating at Taco Bell? You eat Taco Bell? You're better than Taco Bell, dude. You're better than Taco Bell. Count so that you know the energy, and then have some quality food around. Okay, once you've done those two, the third, and by the way, I really should say this one's probably goes before these two. Maybe it's even with food. Get your circadian rhythm and your sleep right. Fix your light. Fix your redox, which is the balance of positive to negative energy in your body. And that's not just some woo-woo idea. That's oxidative stress, right? So oxidative stress, by the way, is you have oxidants and antioxidants. Both are needed. Oxidants essentially cause damage. Antioxidants neutralize oxidants. So your redox is basically your ability to go from both. Both are actually needed. You need oxidants and you need antioxidants. So your redox is your ability to balance that within your body. The quality and the health of your redox is the quality and health of your mitochondria and therefore your entire life. So getting your circadian health in line. We'll probably do multiple episodes on this. I'll probably do just one big overview episode on the hitters, but the heavy hitters here are see the sunrise, get as much sun as humanly possible, avoid bright lights at night, but especially blue light at night. Put blue light filters on your phone and your screens if you're able. Put your feet on grass as much as humanly possible. Take your socks off, dog, and put your feet on grass. I don't know how else to say this. And see the sunset if possible, and avoid bright light at night. I said that twice because it's doubly important. And that's because that, paired with morning light, will allow you to create and release melatonin. Melatonin, one, is your master antioxidant. But number two, I'm going to stop there because melatonin is the master antioxidant. And do you know what stimulates melatonin? Infrared light. So, very important. You get melatonin from the sun, which is 50% infrared, and also your sleepy time melatonin by getting darkness at night and morning light. So, doing all of those things, plus generally avoiding eating super late and eating breakfast, will go a long way to setting your circadian rhythm. And this doesn't just help with metabolism, but it also helps with like mood, mental health, general energy, even like gut health and joint health, because the cells in your body, the lining of your intestines, and this has been shown, by the way, this is studied, the lining of your intestines, of your joints, they renew on a circadian basis. So by getting that on lock, you get so many other things that lock in as a result. So get your circadian health right. That's a necessary foundation. Now, another foundation here is nutrients. There are so many nutrients that are super important, but two that are wildly important, especially in the world of metabolism, are magnesium and vitamin B1, because both of those are integral to your mitochondria being able to function. And if you have B1 especially, you need magnesium. You need a lot of these. You can take a lot and not get hurt. Magnesium, if you take too much, it makes you poop. B1, if you take too much, you just pee it out. You can't, and you don't store it. So there's really not a problem of any toxicity. And then B vitamins in general. So you can get this as an activated B complex, or you can get this from foods like eating a lot of organ meats and shellfish, or both. You can mix them in. That's what I do. Sometimes I don't feel like eating as much shellfish, so I'll just supplement a complex. That's what I'm doing right now. But then sometimes I'll be more on it, and I'll have more like shellfish, organ meats, whatever. Those are all really useful. Vitamin C, super, super useful for a lot of things because it's just a powerful antioxidant, also supports gut health, and a number of other things. So you've got like B1, B complex, magnesium, vitamin C, and then your fat-soluble vitamins like A and D and K2, which you can mostly get if you're consuming like high-quality dairy and you're getting enough sun, because vitamin D is created through UVB turning cholesterol into vitamin D in your skin, which, yes, means you need to be eating animal fats like eggs, steak, elk, bison in order to get the cholesterol that you can then turn into vitamin D. So we've got those nutrients. So you're nutrient maxing. You need to be nutrient maxing. I could add so many to this list. Taurine is also a really good one. But those there are really important. That's kind of foundational. You have to have those in place. Because like I said, if you're going to improve your metabolism, that means you're running through more fuel, which means you need to be able to provide yourself with more fuel, and that includes nutrients. So that's foundational. Now, one more thing that's super foundational is fixing your gut. And this is a rabbit hole in and of itself, but basically, if your gut doesn't work, then how are you going to absorb any of the food that you're eating? So, around 90% plus of the nutrients you eat are or should be absorbed in the small intestine. And the small intestine is very, very sensitive, similar to the thyroid, to stress. And the things that you eat damage your small intestine. So I have a gut guide. It's a pretty great guide. I don't remember if I have it posted right now. It's either like pretty cheap or it's free. I can't remember. I'll link it somewhere and you can find it. But you got to get your gut right. If you get your gut right, then you start absorbing nutrients better, like zinc, magnesium, vitamin D, and you start getting B vitamins from your microbiome. You start getting short chain fatty acids that and vitamin K2 from your microbiome that will then go on and signal, for example, acetate, which is a short chain fatty acid that is created by bacteria in your microbiome. That helps signal GLP-1 in your small intestine, which is how Ozempic works. So that's the foundation. So moving on, we're going to talk about a couple of levers to pull. So the first and biggest lever is fasting, because fasting allows you to put yourself in a calorie deficit. But what I like about fasting is that it adopts the like fast and feast mentality. I hate doing the just like 70%. I'm not good at it. I'm kind of an in or out guy. And if you're the 70% guy, fine, man. Count some calories and make sure you're getting your nutrients and you'll be good. That's fine. I don't like it. I hate it. I would rather enjoy myself fully and completely, like fully enjoy the meal that I'm eating, or not eat at all. And so that's what I do. And the benefit of that is I get periods where I put myself really into like starvation mode, because starvation mode is also cleanup mode in your body. It allows for autophagy, which allows for your cells to clean up inside of themselves. It allows you to repair yourself, including your gut. It's fantastic. And of course, it also has the benefit of teaching you discipline, but also teaching you to not be governed so aggressively by your appetites. But I love it because it helps regulate leptin, it helps regulate insulin, it helps you rebuild your body, it helps you rebuild your gut, and it lets you get into a deficit. So right now, for example, what I'm doing, because I'm cutting for the next probably couple of months, is I actually fast 2 days a week. And one of those is a 24-hour fast, and then the other one is 18 to 24 or so hours. And having a couple days a week where I do that, you'll lean out quite a bit. You do need to be careful not to do it for too long, and you need to make sure that you ease your way into it. I've been fasting for quite a while, and so that works. But I have friends that will do just 3-day fasts every month, and that's how they stay leaner. You can look at calories, like energy that you're consuming, on a macro scale. It's not just daily. You can look at it weekly and monthly, right? You can do that, and it works. That's how I like to do it, because it lets me fully enjoy the meals while I'm eating them, and it lets me just fully enjoy not eating and all the benefits that come from that. And by the way, when you fast for a day or two, you realize how much time you spend eating, and you get some stuff done. So that's what I do. But what makes the fasting unique is I like to pair it with carb cycling. And carb cycling is essentially, it's a way of eating as many carbs as possible while still not being in, what's the word? It's the opposite of a deficit. Surplus. I got the word. So when you're carb cycling, normally you'll have like really high carb days followed by really low carb days, right? And the idea of that is that what we've talked about with leptin and insulin, when it's higher, it's really good because you get all the nutrients, but then when it's lower, you can resensitize yourself to it. So I like to use that in combination with the fasting, so that my fasting are basically my low carb days, right? They're my stressed out days. I actually feel really good when I fast, but I have those. And then right after, I'll have a higher carb day, right? Like 200-300 carbs. And the pairing of that makes it so that I use those carbs a lot better than I would otherwise, than if I just stayed in this like 70% realm for however long. And again, if you like that, do it. That's fine. It works. I hate it, so I don't do it. This allows me to not think about it, because, by the way, everything I've talked about up till now, it's just a part of the way that I live. I don't think about it. The only thing that I think about is like, okay, I think I want to lean out a bit. And so next couple months, I'm going to fast a couple days a week, and I'll just be more conscious about having higher carb days. So the next lever is related to something called the Randall cycle, which is basically the idea that eating a lot of fats and eating a lot of carbs at the same time can affect the way that they're absorbed, right? Eating a lot of fat can make it so that carbs aren't absorbed as efficiently, glucose, and vice versa. Now, I think some people will argue this. I don't really care because I've seen that it works. So, in addition to the carb cycling, when I'm doing this during these periods, I'll just have generally higher carb meals and higher fat meals. And at the higher fat meals, I have lower carbs, obviously. Higher carb meals, I have lower fat. Now, I'm not like 100% perfect about this, but it's really useful to do it this way. And that will allow you to utilize the carbs better when you have them, but then you get the fats that, of course, will allow you to get the cholesterol. And fats really are like hormone builders because they just hold so much cholesterol and they have so many nutrients in them, while the carbs are a great fuel. Yes, I understand the ketos and the carnivores will be like, fats are a better fuel. Well, like, that's dumb and you're wrong. Keto's useful, but I actually think keto's really only super useful because it resensitizes you to be able to eat carbs again. Because carbs are pro-thyroid and pro-metabolism if you're sensitive to them, which if you're fasting occasionally, then you will be, or at least if you have low carb days. So those are the levers so far. You've got fasting, you've got this carb cycling, and then you've got this paying attention to when you have your higher fat and higher carb meals. So you're more sensitive to insulin, which means you absorb sugar better earlier in the day when the sun is higher. So generally my first two meals will be like high carb, high protein, and then my later meal will be lower carb, higher fat, and then, still some protein. And that's basically it. In addition to that, you can spend more time under red light, spend less time under blue light. I forgot. Movement. Of course, walk a whole lot more. You need to walk like 10 to 15K steps. I don't always get that every day, but I often do. And it makes a big role. Just move more, but also hit cardio. So if you train something like jiu-jitsu, then that's going to do it for you because that's just like rounds of hell. It's just brutal. But if you don't do something like that, then like sprint, run up hills, do burpees, and do like max for 10 to 15 seconds, 4 or 5 rounds a few times a week, fan bike. It doesn't matter what it is. Do something max that makes you want to throw up 2 or 3 times a week. And that'll get you moving. Again, mitochondrial efficiency, using energy. Now, when you're walking, it's even better if you do like long walks or like zone 2 cardio while you're fasting, because you don't have carbs as fuel. Your body's going to better use that to oxidize or burn the fat as fuel instead of just the carbs. And the last thing is like, there's a couple supplements you could add. Berberine can be really helpful. ALA, I think it's alpha lipoic acid that can be really helpful. I've seen some benefit from berberine. Some will use a lot of L-carnitine. I haven't seen anything crazy from L-carnitine, but maybe I just haven't taken enough yet. And that's it. That's the whole thing. And that's what I use to feel amazing all the time. Because if you get your food right, you get your gut right, you get your sleep right, you get your movement right, and you get your mind right, then it takes a minute to build this into your lifestyle. But I promise you, once you build your lifestyle into this way, you don't have to think about it. And then when you get to the point you're like, oh yeah, I was trying to gain, but I gained a little too much. I guess I'll just fast. You could do it for a month, 2 weeks. You fast a couple times a week. Or maybe you're like, I'm going to do a 2 or 3 day fast. And you're done. And then you go back. And you just never let yourself fall completely out of it, right? Like, I'm always paying attention to like my carb to fat ratio. Every meal isn't perfect. Like, I might go get wings with the boys after this, but I'm always paying attention to it. And I'm always incorporating, I like to do like at least like an 18-hour fast every week because I've had gut problems in the past. I like to give myself a reset. It's important. I'm a psycho about my sleep. I pay attention to my circadian environment always. Right? So like when you build these things into your lifestyle, at this point, the only levers I have to change are like, okay, I'm just going to be extra careful about like really lower fat beginning of the day, higher carb, especially the day after I fast. I'm going to add another day of fasting, maybe add a couple supplements, and make sure that I add a little more HIIT. And that is literally it. And using that, I have had more energy, better mood, better sex drive, more muscle gain, less fat, and more ability to build the body and train in the way that I want and perform the way that I want without caffeine, mind you, than I've ever been before. And that is the secret to my unfattening. And the secrets will continue to unfold as I continue to learn the metabolic wonders of this body that God gave me.